Now, it
Yeah.
wouldn't be, I wouldn't want to go without talking about for a minute, on our visit, the fact that y'all found a fantastic CEO and a fantastic CFO to really, you know, take the company. You guys have it stabilized. You guys are doing fantastic. But Charlie and Brian, y'all have stepped out a little bit because the leadership is doing such a great job. Obviously, your fingerprints are all over the company, but y'all are dealing in real estate now. Y'all are doing some development. You're heavy into short-term rentals. Brian, let's start with you. I know that you've got, is it 4 or 5 short-term rentals and 5 or 6 commercial properties and some developments. Kind of walk us through that and why you're doing that.
Yeah, let me try and kind of make the easiest direct answer to that. So, we were all running the company together. I was CEO, Cody was president of all 5-star, Charlie was chief innovation officer, product sales and everything. And so coming out of COVID or into 2021, we had a CFO who had really, been a partner with us since 2018 when Charlie touched on us consolidating all of these ownership structures and rolling this company up. And he was, he had kind of gotten us to the point that he'd signed up for, which is, had a package that we could put on the market. As you touched on it, we didn't end up selling, but he was getting ready to move on. And I don't know, I had this wild idea and I was like, hey, what if we kept him on and offered him a role as CEO? It would allow me to kind of elevate out of the business initially. And over probably starting in 2019, I had started to get interested in real estate. A buddy of mine actually got me interested. I was so hyper focused on our business for the first 10 years that I've never looked anywhere else. I didn't care about any other investments. You couldn't tell me anything. What we were doing was all I cared about doing. And, started to want, I think, other challenges. I had that desire to sharpen the saw and kind of learn other stuff. So I was spending a lot of my time in my evenings and stuff like learning about real estate. And I bought a few investment properties and repositioned them, renovated them, was short-term renting them. And I had a desire to kind of expand that business, just real estate in general. And I saw it as a good opportunity to create diversity of capital for the 3 of us. And so I just proposed, hey, let me take a bunch of this capital that we have collectively. Let's create a real estate investment sort of fund, just us, and I'll go and I'll invest it into these different asset classes, and I'll be kind of a steward of that capital so that we can start to create some other avenues of income and revenue and just diversify from, what is a high risk business, right? And is purely a cash flow business in the supplement space. And so that was kind of I think the entry into it.
That was the entry into it. And then what about you, Charlie? I mean, you jumped on board right out of the gate, and you guys haven't looked back since then. And I know that you've got the developments here, out on Lake LBJ. You've got those. You've got the ones down at the Texas coast. Of course, you have the one there in Silverton, Brian, that you're involved with. You've got your properties in Aspen, but. What my takeaway from that is that y'all really enjoy the flavor of the short-term rental markets, but it's got to be in the right market.
Yeah, I mean Brian's the guy on that, but he did plenty of research into this, right? And then he was kind of the first one to test it. But there's tools, AirDNA and stuff like that. But he certainly did a lot of his research, and and then some of it, some of these, I guess, passion projects like a beach house and stuff like that, you end up building and there's a bunch of juice in it, but that deal. But yeah, most of the real estate stuff was Brian led, and it's not just the short-term stuff. Like we have a whole portfolio of investments, and he meets a lot of people and, gets the right relationships, and we're invested into all types of asset classes, which is nice to diversify your portfolio. But, not having your eggs all in one basket, being the nutrition stores, is super important, right? So
hard assets,
and tax beneficial investments, I think is what Brian's got really good at, is making sure that, what you're investing in, right? It's a wealth building mechanism. You're not going to get rich right away on real estate, but you're going to build a ton of wealth, and you're going to have a ton of tax benefits. And
several of these properties y'all have enjoyed for your personal use, like the condo that I know that y'all bought with our boy Jordan, that's, how many properties do y'all have within the group, yours individually? And
I mean, we probably have 8 or 9 kind of properties that are, mostly like short-term rentals. So I run a handful of them. I have someone that works for me, and we run a little short-term rental, kind of vacation rental management business for our properties. We have a few others with other partners that they operate. And then we have, I mean, probably a dozen commercial investments just through various syndications. So multifamily, condo development, a couple just land development deals, assisted living facilities. But most of those, so it's kind of like, the way I approach it is I got into short-term rental as like a direct ownership asset class. At the time, it was like the yields were so much better than anything else. And I felt like if I treated it like a business and not a hobby, it wouldn't be that difficult. And so I hired someone on way before I needed someone, so that when I needed someone, I had someone, and it didn't become something that I had to do. So I have a really great like asset manager who's worked for me for a few years that runs them. And, you know, it cuts the cost of management in a fourth of what you'd pay if you use a third-party management company. And then I kind of looked at how to get exposure to other asset classes. And, you know, during, you know, up until right now, multifamily was like a big sponsor, big cash person's game. And so the really the best way to get exposure to a good asset class like that was to invest with sponsors who are raising money as just a passive investor. And so we've been able to get exposure there. And like Charlie said, I mean, I meet different people, and you know, people talk about real estate. I meet them at the gym. I meet them at the coffee shop. It just doesn't matter where. And I get to talking if they, you know, and sometimes they'll introduce me to good sponsors. I'll do a lot of research, and that's how we'll approach investments. And then I fell into a few land deals. Was hella skiing in Silverton, and met a guy who owned the hotel I was staying in, and we ended up partnering on a deal. And then our real estate investment company ended up investing a lot of the capital into that deal. So it's happened in a lot of ways. I think at the end of the day, it was like, I wanted to be in real estate. So I kind of like just jumped into it for a lot of time at night when I was still running Define. And then I was like, hey, can't really do both of these. I mean, I could, but I don't want to. And so like, I'd rather approach real estate specifically and not have so much of my own personal time in Define. And like I said, that was how that whole process emerged, with our CEO taking over. And then, you know, right now I more or less spearhead those investments, and, you know, they don't take all my time. So it gives me some free time still. And I'm able to spend some time at Define on the strategic side, and our annual, quarterly, weekly meetings and those sort of things.
Does it give you free time to go powder skiing? And when you're doing that, you have a photographer that rides along right next to you and takes a great shot of you, and then you end up taking that to a printer, and then that printer puts it in a frame, and then that ends up on your wall behind you?
It's more or less how it happens. Yeah.
But, you know, my takeaway,
a little nuance, but that's more or less it.
You know, my takeaway from that is that, as they say, the old adage, birds of a feather flock together, right? And the three of you gentlemen, along with your team, you know, y'all are not only flocking, but you're soaring.